Welcome to the Empowerment Zone with Ramona Houston, where we zone in on Black and Brown relations and our journey to empowering our communities.
Thank you for joining the Empowerment Zone. I am your host, Ramona Houston. I am so delighted today because I have a cousin as a guest. I have cousin Dr. Eboni Hall. She is the Senior Manager of Urban Forestry Education at American Forest. Dr. Hall oversees a new initiative to develop and implement American Forest's mission into education and outreach. Dr. Hall works with institutions nationwide to expand urban forestry programs and courses, increase awareness of urban forestry as an interdisciplinary field, and provide resources for career paths in urban forestry and related fields. Dr. Hall has expertise in urban forestry, interdisciplinary teaching, community outreach and engagement, climate science, natural resource management, and environmental sustainability. Dr. Hall is a graduate of Southern University in A&M College, one of our spectacular historically Black colleges and universities. She is also a graduate of the University of Georgia, where she earned her MA of Science in Forest Ecology. And then she has a PhD in Ecosystem Sciences from Texas A&M University. We are delighted to have you, Dr. Hall. Hello, good morning. How are you today?
Hello, good morning. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, cousin, for coming in. I'm really excited about having you because of the field you're in, which is very rare for me to have the opportunity to interview somebody in urban forestry. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the work that you do today?
Absolutely. And I understand that thought because it's definitely a white male dominated field. And I've sometimes found that as a challenge throughout my field, but I also found it as something to actually make me interested in what I'm doing, because just the other day we had the first female pilot to actually be in the armed forces, and we're still making moves as Black women. And so for me to be in this field, I want to pave the way for those who come behind me. And so what happened was I actually started off my career, or I wanted to be a physical therapist. So I started off majoring in kinesiology, and then I was like, I was a part of this Bayou program, the summer program that Southern University has, and it allows students to be a part of a 6-week program where they come on campus, they learn about the Department of Agriculture and the different department, or the College of Agriculture and the different departments within it. And so that's when I was introduced to urban forestry. And I was like, wow, it's amazing with the different things that you can do, because I had this stigma of forestry is just about trees, but it's so much more than that. And so I got into urban forestry, started conducting research on urban wood reuse, and then also conducting research in the Appalachian Mountain region on riparian forests in that area. And then while conducting my dissertation research at Texas A&M, I realized there was a disconnect between how technical information was transferred to non-technical audiences. And so since then, I have been committed to creating a career path for myself that allows me to provide innovative and effective approaches to communicate technical information with non-technical audiences by linking that information to and implementing those practices in the communities that it will impact most.
So when you talk about technical information, providing technical information to non-technical audiences, could you give us an example of what you mean by that?
Sure. So, with all of the research and all of the data that's available, as far as like at the moment, I was conducting research on water availability in urban landscapes. So many times you will see people irrigating their lawns midday when it's between noon or 4 o'clock in the evening. And this is when we experience our highest temperatures. And so what most people are not aware of is when we are watering or irrigating our lawns during that time, it's simply evaporating from the ground. So the trees aren't able to utilize, or vegetation isn't able to utilize that water anyway, because because the surface of the earth is so hot that water is lost back to the atmosphere. So being able to communicate that to citizens and saying, like, here's the research, here's the data that we have. Actually, if you were to water your lawn later on in the evening or later on that night, it would be more beneficial.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm from a small town in Texas, and I remember people watering our lawns, in the midday. So just that information could improve our water bill as well as improve the impact that we want to make on our lawns.
Precisely. And I'm so glad you made that connection between your water bill, because, and I get on my dad so much about this, and he's so mad right now because his water or his the lawn in the front yard is almost non-existent. And so he thought it was because of the shading of his large live oak trees that are in the yard. But I was like, no, Dad, actually grasses don't require a lot of watering. You're wasting money, you're wasting resources, you're wasting energy. And so it wasn't until I educated him on it that he was like, you know what? I never thought about it that way. So I'm glad you were able to make that connection.
Yes, it's good to have an expert in the family. Yeah, so tell us about urban forestry. What is that?
So urban forestry, and like I said before, I was actually in this field. I was clueless as well, and just thought it was all about tree huggers and people who love nature enthusiasts. But actually, despite that common belief that urban forestry is solely about trees, it's actually the science, the technology, the engineering, the art, and the mathematics. And I'm sure you've heard of STEM and STEAM, and it entails all of that. And it goes into managing trees in urban settings that enhance human, environmental, and economic well-being. And without considering people and the built environment, then it's traditional forestry. So that's what makes urban forestry urban forestry.
So you said it enhances our life. So how does urban forestry enhance the lives of individuals or communities?
Okay, glad you asked that question. One way is that trees actually clean the air. So if you live, and I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and because of that, I'm in Cancer Alley, which is what is considered between Beaumont, Texas, and Baton Rouge. And so because of trees, despite all of the manufacturing and industries that we have in this long stretch of area, trees are actually able to, or we benefit from trees because they're cleaning the air around us. So actually our air would be more polluted than it actually is without trees. Another way, you saw the instance in Flint, Michigan, where their water, they had issues with water quality. Well, trees filter and clean water. They also protect us from the loss of soil. They prevent soil erosion. They also benefit us by providing shade. They reduce your energy bill or your utility bill because they provide shade. And if trees are properly planted around your home and your community, they can lower the impacts or decrease the impacts of urban heat islands in your area. So if you stay in an area that has less trees or less amount of trees, you may actually experience a microclimate that's much warmer than a neighboring community. So trees are very beneficial to us.
Yeah, many don't look at all of those. I didn't know all of those health benefits of trees or how they make a big impact in our individual lives and as well as our communities. So we definitely need more trees in our communities. And in urban areas, we usually don't have a lot of trees, correct?
It depends on the area. It depends on the city. Like if you look at cities such as New York, San Francisco, and Atlanta was actually at the top of the list where you are. But in recent years, it's been on a decline, which Atlanta is right now trying to implement an ordinance that will actually increase the number of trees to get Atlanta back to the tree canopy coverage percentage that it was previously. So it depends on the city, it depends on the location, it depends on policies, it depends on different types of the backing that you have by the community and decision makers in those cities. So it just depends on the area that you're in.
So tell us about American Forest. What is it?
So I'm glad you asked that. We are actually the first and oldest national nonprofit forest conservation organization in the United States. And since our founding in 1875, we have been the pathfinders for the forest conservation movement. In the early 1900s, for example, we rallied forest advocates to champion creation of the U.S. Forest Service, which many people don't know that. They're not aware of that. And it's a huge federal agency today. And so in the 1970s, we established the first national urban forestry program and have been a leader in the field ever since. But we're more than just a tree planting organization. We have an innovation lab where we do scientific research and create new tools like our Vibrant Cities Lab. It's a website. It's the most comprehensive online urban forestry website in the country. We also work in cities, not to do one-off tree planting events, but to spend as much time as needed to create and implement urban forestry plans. And we also help build movements like tree equity. That is our biggest movement right now in our community relief department, which is all about ensuring that people who need trees the most are actually benefiting from those trees. We're also different from other forest conservation organizations because we think of forest conservation as a social equity issue and not just an environmental issue.
So can you talk a little bit about social equity? Why do you define forestry why does American Forest define urban forestry as social equity? Their work is involved in social equity.
Well, it ties into our initiative with tree equity. And because of that, tree equity is optimizing urban forests for climate and health so that every citizen experiences the benefits of trees. And it's also a moral imperative, not just an environmental issue. It helps ensures that everybody benefits from the power of trees to fulfill their basic needs, such as breathing fresh air, as I was just mentioning about Cancer Alley, and drinking clean water. So by us taking it beyond just planting trees and actually meeting the needs of those in these communities who are who are historically marginalized, and also in these communities where we see that there are some social inequities that are occurring in these areas, we're actually able to meet the needs and serve those communities that need it most.
It's good to hear that you all consider urban forestry as a social equity issue. Many times we don't look at it as that. We just look at it as we're getting more trees in the community and not looking at the whole way we benefit as a community by having trees. So, you talked about this community being dominated by white males, being a profession dominated by white males. How do we get more Black and Brown communities interested in looking at urban forestry as a career option?
So I'm working on that with one of my colleagues, Sarah Anderson. We're working to educate people in these communities, in underserved and underrepresented communities, through education. We're also using workforce development, and we're trying to make them aware of certain pre-employment and assistantship programs that are available, because we have a lot of opportunity youth and we have a lot of people who are unemployed, especially now during the pandemic that we're experiencing, but they're not aware of some of the opportunities available to them. And so there aren't many pre-employment programs, and it's hard to know how to find them because there's no national network of forestry pre-employment programs. So many urban forestry employers also lack a formal commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and lack leaders from diverse backgrounds. And that was an issue for me being in this field, is I didn't see that representation of people who looked like me. And so that's another barrier that I am trying to break, with allowing students to see, like, hey, you are a Black female with a PhD, and you're also working in a field that we don't normally see someone who looks like us in. And I don't want them to have to experience what I had to experience. So just trying to break those barriers and create a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion from leadership to improve recruitment and retention of new employees. And that's one of the biggest things that are a barrier that we face in this field, is when that representation isn't there, that is a reflection of you. How do we retain and recruit employees that are of Black and Brown or from Black and Brown communities? And so, as I mentioned, with me being in education, the number of higher education programs offering degrees in urban forestry is extremely low. And as a matter of fact, Southern University, where I went to undergrad, is the only four-year institution that offers a degree, whether it's a bachelor's, master's, or PhD or doctoral degree in urban forestry. The only one in the nation. Although there are, a few four-year institutions that offer certifications and concentrations in urban forestry. And then there are some community colleges and two-year institutions that offer associate's degree. But Southern University is the only institution in the nation that offers a four-year degree in urban forestry. So we have those barriers in both education and in the employment or the workforce development, where we need to make that connection to meet that need to actually grasp people from Black and Brown communities into this field.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that fact about Southern University in that they're the only institution in the United States that offer BA to PhD. So now, speaking to our audience, you talked about people looking for jobs. We have young people who are now in college, or some who are not necessarily in college, who are looking for career options. Can you talk a little bit about the multiple types of work that is available in urban forestry? Like what are some of the types of work that they could do?
Okay. So There are a number of careers that exist in urban forestry and related fields. And like I mentioned earlier, urban forestry is an interdisciplinary field in itself. So when people hear urban forestry, what I try to do is I try to remove that stigma of it's just about trees. It's more than about trees. And so one thing I like to do is to encourage youth, students, and those looking for employment or looking to change careers, is to seek out job opportunities that will utilize their skills, their strengths, their values, and their interests. And the great thing about urban forestry is that it's incorporated in just about every occupation that you can think of, from a research scientist to a psychologist to a general contractor. And somebody might ask, well, how psychologist? Well, forest bathing is big right now. Being able to utilize the placement of trees when people are going through rehabilitation services or when people are receiving therapy, using trees, using the natural environment to better enhance the mood and recovery of clients and patients. And then also general contractor, like it's very big right now that new buildings, from hotels to schools to different type of dome, like we see all of these football domes going up, but building these buildings in efficient ways, that's all a part of green jobs. That's all a part of the opportunities that are available in urban forestry. And so the field also has various job opportunities regardless of someone's education level. They can start in a pre-employment or an apprenticeship program, or you can start by having a degree. So you don't have to have, or you can have a high school education, but you can also have a degree from a higher education institution. And so our efforts are focused on creating a national career pathways exploration guide to offset some of these barriers that historically marginalized people face to enter the green industry, as well as promoting and innovating successful solutions to address specific training, education, and experience requirements and systemic problems. And one of those issues is simply awareness of what careers exist in the urban forestry field and other greening fields. And so by bridging the employment gap between the current skilled labor shortage, underemployed and unemployed recent graduates, and undecided high school graduates, it may be a challenge, but with tree equity and our career exploration guide, those who actually utilize this product, they can explore different careers in urban greening and gain access to online resources designed to prepare tomorrow's green workforce at every skill level. So that's something that I'm working on right now with my colleagues. We are trying to develop, or we are in the midst of developing, a tree equity career pathways exploration guide that will allow users to explore the different opportunities that are available in urban forestry.
I'm so happy to hear, cousin, that you're on the cutting edge of trying to get people to explore tree equity as a career option in forestry. That's great to hear about this new program, Tree Equity Exploration Guide. So if our audience wants to learn more about you, your work, or getting information about that guide, do you have any contact information you would like to share, or a website you would like to share?
Yes. So, of course, they can reach me at ehall@americanforest.org. Also, vibrantcitieslab.com is a very useful tool. I wish I was aware of it when I was in school. There's so much info. There is a plethora of information on that website, and it's just so useful, regardless to if you're a student, if you're a professor, if you're a land manager, or even a decision maker. You're incorporating policies into your codes and to your planning decisions. It is a very useful tool.
Great. Well, thank you so much for educating our audience, and me too, on tree equity and urban forestry. I'm just so delighted to have you here, cousin, and I hope you'll come back as your program progresses and let us know how you're doing and what else our audience can do in terms of creating tree equity in our communities.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you
for having me.
Thank you, cousin. Love you.
Love you too.
Welcome. I am here with my cousin, Dr. Eboni Hall, and we're giving students strategies for college success. And I am happy to have Dr. Hall here today because she is a PhD from Texas A&M University, where she graduated with a doctorate in ecosystem sciences. She also attended the University of Georgia, where she received her MA of Science in Forest Ecology, and she's a graduate of a historically Black college and university, Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I know all that brain power, she has some great advice for you on how you can be more successful in college. Welcome, cousin Dr. Eboni. How are you today?
Hello, I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
So tell me, what piece of advice would you give a student who wants to be more successful in college?
Okay, this is actually a part of what I am very inspired to work on right now. This is a part of the new initiative that I'm working on at American Forest, and I want students to explore schools and topics and subjects that interest you. Like, don't be afraid to really delve into that and be honest with yourself. College is not for everyone, and you don't have to have a degree to be successful. Make sure, whatever degree that you are pursuing, that it's for you, that it's not for mom, it's not for dad, or it's not for anyone else. Make sure that you're pursuing that degree for you. They don't tell you to look to your right or look to your left at freshman orientation for no reason. They tell you that because it's a possibility that either you or one of those people sitting next to you may not be there in the next year. And it's because college is challenging in itself. So you have to want it for yourself and no one else. Also, be active, get involved with clubs and organizations, be a part of the college community. That's how you get to know people, and build your network. Also, sit down and have conversations with professors whose classes interest you. I cannot tell you how imperative it is, because they can eventually end up serving as your mentor. And mentors are very valuable in that you need someone who has already navigated that landscape that you are entering upon, that you are journeying upon. And they will be able to provide that guidance and advice when you need it most. So find a mentor if you do embark on a journey, whether it's to pursue a higher education, or if you just want to get into the workforce. Find someone who will mentor you and guide you in the right direction to get you to where you want to go.
This is great advice. You had a whole bunch of advice for us, Dr. Eboni, cousin Eboni.
Yeah, this is what I'm passionate about. I love, it's all about our youth. It's all about those who come behind us, to be trailblazers for them, to be examples for them, to lead and guide them in the right direction. We have the tools, we have the resources, so why not make their opportunities better for them?
Make sure college is for you. Explore different topics when you get to college. Make sure you're involved with your college community. Build your network and make sure you get a mentor. Thank you so much, Cousin Dr. Eboni. We appreciate having you and all this great advice.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
A special thank you to the incredible team of the Empowerment Zone. Terry Gully, theme song. NADWorks, digital support, and of course, our featured guest.
If you enjoyed my podcast, please subscribe. We are on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to rate us on Apple Podcasts too. Thank you for your continued support.